Good day, viewers. Welcome to another mathematics lesson, and this is going to be our fourth lesson in geometry. My name is Khalid Jallo, and today we are going to look at properties of solid shapes. In our previous lesson, we've looked at some of the properties of the plane shapes, and we concentrated on the cubes and cuboids. And today we are going to look at cylinder, cone, and sphere. We are going to look at these solid shapes. We are going to talk about their properties. What are the key properties that they have that will qualify them to be called a cylinder, a cone, or a sphere? So we will look at them individually, and we'll discuss certain properties that they possess, so that whenever we find some of these shapes in our environment, we will be able to tell whether they are cylinders, whether they are cones, and whether they are spheres. So last lesson we talked about cubes and cuboids. You can be able to identify them whenever you see them in the environment. So we look at the first one, which is a cylinder. We want to look at a cylinder and see the properties that a cylinder has, and what shapes do we classify to be cylindrical objects and others. So we looked at the number of faces that they have, just like in cubes, the number of faces they have, and the nature of the faces that they have. We are going to look at that as well. So we have a cylinder. It's a solid shape with one curved surface and two flat faces. With one curved surface and two flat faces. Like for instance, we have many objects in our environment that are cylindrical. So, like for instance, we have this oval tin. If you look at the shape of the tin, it is cylindrical. So the one flat surface, the curved surface that we are talking about here, is this region of the shape. This region of the tin, as you can see, it is curved. So it is the curved surface, and it's just one curved surface. And the two flat faces that we are talking about are these areas. Here is a flat surface, and here also is another flat. That is the bottom and the top. The top is flat, and the bottom is also a flat. But the sides here, it is a curved surface. So those are few of the things that we need to observe in order to recognize a cylinder. Like the picture that we have on the board, this side here is the flat surface. That is the flat face that we have, and this other side equally is a flat face. We are just having it in this way. This side is a flat face, and this other side also is a flat face. And what we have here is what we have here, which is the curved surface. So whenever we see a cylinder, we should be able to recognize that this is a cylinder. Also, we can have a milk tin, which is pig. This is also an example of a cylinder. Here is the flat surface. Always you need to understand that they have two flat faces. Two flat faces. This face is flat, and this other face is also flat, and it has one curved surface. The surface here is just one, and it is curved, and they are all joined together. So that is what we refer to as a cylinder. So it has two flat faces and one curved surface. Also, we have another scientific equipment. This can also represent a cylinder. As you can see, you can use it to measure so many things. Also, you can see this is the curved surface area. This is the curved surface, and here is a flat face, and here also is a flat face. So that is what we refer to as a cylinder. So what other objects or solid shapes can we think of in the society that we can classify as a cylinder? First, we need to take note of two things. That is, it has two flat faces on both ends, just like here. We have one face here and the other face there. So it has two flat faces and one curved face. That is the one that we have here. And these are the two things that we need to consider whenever we are talking about cylinder, or when we are talking about objects that are cylindrical. We need to pay a lot of attention on that. Whenever we come across with objects, in order for us to call them cylinders or to justify that they are cylinders, we need to look at those two properties. We need to look at whether the object has two faces. If we confirm that the object has two faces and it has a curved surface, then we can conclude that that particular object is a cylinder. And here is a classical example that you can find in the environment. If you go to shops, milk tins, and all others, they are all cylindrical. They are all examples of a cylinder. So what are some of the objects you can think of? You can think of that are in the shape of a cylinder. What are some of the objects that you can think of that are in the shape of a cylinder? You can think of a lot of things. Here we have some. You can see this one is a candle. When it starts melting, you see that the side on top is always what? Is always flat. And the bottom side is also flat, and the sides is a curved surface. So that is an example of a cylinder because it has all the properties that we need to classify it as a cylinder. Also, you can look at the milk tin. The milk tin also has similar properties because it has two flat surfaces, that is up there and the bottom, the base. It has two flat surfaces, and one, this side here, is one curved surface. It's one curved surface. Just like this is how the milk tin look like. You have up here is a flat surface, and at the bottom here is also a flat surface, and it has a curved surface. So that is what we refer to as a cylinder. So therefore, the milk tin is also an example of a cylinder. We look at the third one. The third one is a can drink. The third one is a can drink. Also, can drinks, when you look at them keenly and carefully, you realize that they are also examples of cylinders because they also have similar properties with a cylinder. That is to say, it has two flat surfaces. That is the top side of it and the bottom side of it. They are all flat surfaces, and it has one curved surface area. So that is what we look at whenever we want to find out whether a given solid shape is cylindrical, is a cylinder or not. Those are the two things that we need to put into consideration. The things are the two flat surfaces. Always they should have two flat surfaces. Two flat faces, rather. Two flat faces. Those are very key there. And one curved surface. One curved surface. I hope that is understood, and I hope whenever you come across with cylinders in our society, you should be able to tell that this particular object is a cylinder or not, and you should be able to examine the cylinder by looking to verify the number of flat faces that it has and the number of curved surface that it has. The number of curved surface should be only one, and the number of flat faces should be two at both ends of the curved surface. That is for cylinders. We move to cones. Well, what can we say about cones? A cone is a solid shape with a curved surface and one flat face. A cone is a solid shape with a curved surface and one flat face. Now remember, when we are talking about cylinders, we said cylinders have two flat faces. They have two flat faces and one curved surface. But when we come to a cone now, it's a different case. Cones, they have a curved surface and one flat face. They have a curved surface and one flat face. And what else can we talk about the cylinder is the point on a cone is called a vertex. It means cones, they also have vertex. So we will talk about the vertex of a cone as well. And a classical example of a cone is what we have here as shown in the diagram here. This will be a cone. As you can see, this side will be what we call the curved surface. This side will be what we call the curved surface. This side will be what we call the curved surface. And the one flat face that we are talking about here is this other side. It is the one flat face. So these are the two properties. It may be similar with that of the cylinder, but they are different. For a cylinder, it has two flat faces. Cylinders have two flat faces, but cones have only one flat face. I understand that. So the rest of it is all curved surface. That is what we have on the cylinders. Also, this point here on top of the cone, if you place the cone like this, on top of it here is called the vertex. That is this point. It's referred to as the vertex. Because it has only one, so we cannot say vertices. It's just a vertex. So cones have a vertex. It also have a curved surface area, and also it has a flat surface. That is a flat face at the bottom. So whenever you see cones, we should be able to tell that this particular object is a cone or not. Here are some examples of a cone. This one is a cone. It's a handmade cone. As you can see, they all have what? They all have the vertex. That is the point on top of the cone is referred to as the vertex. Then we also have the surface area. That is the curved surface area. It is not only a surface area, but the surface area is curved. It's curved. Like this is a total curve. You cannot see any edge on this. It doesn't have any edge. So it is totally a curve. And what we have here is what? We have a flat face. We have a flat face. That is the base of the cone is a flat face. So those are some of the properties of a cone. So whenever we see cones in our environment, we should be able to tell if those objects are cones. Remember, we said it has one curved surface and a vertex that is on top, and also the base is a flat surface. So you can volunteer to draw. You can volunteer to draw a cone here. It has to look like that. This is how it will look like. So here is the point where we call the vertex. And here is where we have the flat face. So this point here is the curved surface. The curved surface. Here we have face. So you can see that the point on top here is what we refer to as the vertex. And the curved area, that is this region, it is all curved, like here, is what we refer to as the curved surface. And the bottom side here is what we refer to as the flat face. So we need to have a curved surface, a vertex, and a flat face in order for that particular object to be referred to as a cone. Now, what are some of the objects that you can think of in our environment that that are cones. What are some of the objects you can think of that are in the shape of a cone? We have some of them here. Here we have some of them. If you can observe, they are almost the same with the cone that we have here. Like looking at this hat, it is in the form of a cone. It has a vertex over here, and it have a curved surface, and it also have what we call a flat face. So there it is referred to as a cone, and it is a hat. Then this ice cream tube is also referred to as a cone because it also has the similar properties with what we have. So it has a vertex here. This is the vertex, and this is our vertex, and here this is the curved surface area. That is the curved surface area, and what we have on top here is the flat face. So it is also a cone. So finally, the last one. If you are very observant when you are in vehicles on the highway, you'll be seeing this nearly at every police checkpoint or military checkpoint. There are cones that they use to indicate to show drivers that somewhere around this place we are here, and you should slow down your speed for police checkpoint or military checkpoint. So in this case also, there are cones. If you look at the structure of the objects that they use, they are also like cones. Like if you look at it, they have vertices. That is on top here. They have vertices, and if you look at the body of the object, it is a curved surface, and at the bottom here, what we have there, it is a flat face. That is why it is able to stand. That is why it can stand. If the bottom was not flat, it will not be able to stand. If it was curved, you will find it very difficult for it to stand. But it is flat, that is why it can stand on my hand. So those are cones. Look at the other solid shape that we have, and the solid shape that we have here is called a sphere. It's called a sphere. Now a sphere is a perfectly round solid shape. Again, I will repeat this. A sphere is a perfectly round solid shape. Now we'll want to focus our attention on perfectly round. There are so many objects in the society that are not perfectly round, and sometimes we claim them to be a sphere. No, they are not spheres. For an object to be called a sphere, it has to be perfectly round. And think of a sphere as a ball, not a circle. A circle is a plane shape, and a sphere is a three-dimensional shape, and it is a solid shape. So when you have a circle like this, it is just a circle because it is a two-dimensional shape. It is just a plane shape. But a sphere is a three-dimensional shape, and it is perfectly round. Sometimes you will have objects in the environment that are not perfectly round, but they are round. We cannot call them spheres because they are not perfectly round. A perfect example of a sphere is going to be a ball. Again, something that we need to put into consideration is the fact that spheres do not have faces. A sphere has 0 faces. It doesn't have any face. Those are the things that we call spheres. Like I said earlier, the example of a sphere will be a ball. Now, if you look at this ball, it is perfectly round. The ball is perfectly round. So this ball, we can consider it to be a sphere because it is perfectly round. Now when you have an object that is probably oval, let's say an egg. If this is going to be the egg for us, if you look at the egg, it is not perfectly round, so it is not spherical. It is not a sphere. So objects like eggs and other things that are oval, we cannot call them spheres because they are not spherical, because they don't have a perfectly round shape. They have to be perfectly round in order for us to classify them as spheres. The other object that we can have and we can call it a sphere is a marble. It's a marble. Now, if you look at marbles, they are perfectly round objects. They are perfectly round objects. A marble is a perfectly round object. Now, if you look at the object very well, you will know that it doesn't have any edges and it doesn't have any face. So these are objects that we classify to be spheres. Once the object is spherical, you cannot. Once this object is oval, you cannot call it a sphere. It has to be perfectly round and it has to be a three-dimensional shape for it to be qualified to be called a sphere. And also the object should not have a face. The object should not have a face. Like for instance, if you have this, if an object that looks like that. Now here will be considered a face because it is flat. It will be considered a face. So that is not going to give you an example of a sphere. And there are many fruits in our society that sometimes we call a sphere, but they are not perfectly round. One thing we need to put in our mind is that spheres are always perfectly round. Like this marble here is perfectly round, and also the ball that we have here is also perfectly round. So what other objects can we think of in our community that are spherical in shape? We have some of them here. We have some of them here. We have some of them here. Like the first one is the marble that we were talking about. The marble that we were talking about, we said it is spherical in shape because it is perfectly round. So that is an example of a sphere. It is perfectly round. That is why we are able to classify it as a sphere. Then the other one that we have is the basketball. If you come across with a basketball, being it big or small, if you observe it very well, you realize that the basketball is perfectly round. So it is considered to be a sphere. So those are some of the objects that you can find in our community, in the society, in football pitches, in basketball pitches, to classify them as a sphere. Again, the third one is the globe. When you enter most offices like the principal's office or the vice principal office in your school, you realize that you'll have this shape in the office representing the globe. Or sometimes in geography classes, you see our geography teachers in their offices and so on, you'll find there the globe. When you take a close look at the globe, you realize that the shape is perfectly round. So it is called a sphere. The shape is called a sphere. Now, just like the marble and the ball, if you look at it, they are all perfectly round, and those are the objects that we call spheres. So in our society, in your homes, in schools, you can always look for objects that are perfectly round, and whenever you find them, they are all referred to as spheres. We move on. We have a question here, and it reads, the shape is a sphere, true or false? The shape is a sphere, this shape rather is a sphere, true or false? You have two options there. Option A says the statement is true, and option B says the statement is false. Now let's look at the picture, and we've examined if it is a sphere. What did we learn about spheres? What do we know about them? When we are discussing on spheres earlier, you said they are three-dimensional shapes or solid shapes that are perfectly round. We said examples of that can be a ball, a volleyball. Also, we said examples of that can be the globe and also a marble. These are all examples of spheres. Now let's look at the picture and see what we have there, whether it resembles a sphere. In the picture, we have a cup and there is a candle inside. So is this picture a sphere? The answer to that question is going to be no. The picture is not a sphere. it is more of a cylinder. Because when we talked about cylinders, we said cylinders have two faces and one round curved surface. One curved surface. So if you look at the picture that we have, it looks like a cylinder. So we cannot call it a sphere. So the answer to that statement is going to be false. The answer to that statement is going to be false, that is option B, because the picture that we have do not replicate a sphere. So we are going to consider that answer to be false. Then we look at the other question. It says, what 3D shape is this object? What 3D shape is this object? The object that we have is in the picture. We want to examine to see what object it is. The options that are given to us are: option A says it is a cube, option B says it is a cone, option C says it is a sphere, and option D says it is a cylinder. So we are going to examine the objects one after the other to determine what kind of object it is. The first one says a cube. In our previous lesson, we've talked about cubes, and then we said cubes are three-dimensional shapes or solid shapes that have 6 faces, 12 edges, and 8 vertices. Like the example of a cube will be here. Remember, all the faces are equal. 6 equal faces. Now look at what we refer to as a cube, whether it is the same thing as what we have in the picture. The answer to that question is no. Then the object that we have in the picture do not replicate a cube, so therefore that option is not going to be correct. Then we look at the third option, or the second option rather. The second option, we have a cone. And what do we know about cones? We said a cone is a solid shape that has a vertex on top, and also it has a curved surface area and also one flat surface. It has a vertex, a curved surface area, and a face, a flat face. So if you look at it, this is what we have. It is a cube. And looking at the object that we have in the picture, is also it also looks like a cube because it has a vertex. It has a vertex just like what we have. It has a curved surface area, and it also has what we call a flat face. So the object looks like a cone, but we are not going to stop there. We'll still examine the rest of the options and see if we will have another answer. The third option says it is a sphere. Now, what do we know about spheres? We said spheres are three-dimensional shapes or solid shapes that are perfectly round. Examples of that, we have a ball and also a marble. So these are examples of spheres that we have, and they don't look like the picture that we have on the board. Then that means the picture doesn't look like a sphere. Then we move on to the last one, which is a cylinder. And we've also talked about cylinders. We said a lot about cylinders, among which we said a cylinder is a solid shape that has 2 flat faces and 1 curved surface. It has 2 flat faces and 1 curved surface. When we look at the object that we have on the board, it has only 1 flat face. So it is not a cylinder, as the cylinders have 2 flat faces. So the correct option here is going to be option B, which is the object is a cone, because it has all the properties of a cone. It has a vertex. It also has a curved surface, and also it has what we call a flat face. So the object that we have there is a cone. We move on to the next one, where we have what 3D shape is this object? Again, looking at the object that we have, it is perfectly round. So we are going to look at the options one after the other to examine which option is the correct answer. Again, the first option says the object is a cone. The second option says the object is a cube. The third option says the object is a cylinder. And the fourth option says the object is a sphere. So we are going to examine these options one after the other to determine what type of object do we have. First, we have a cone. Now, what do we know about cones? What do we know about cones? We said a cone has a vertex, a curved surface, and a flat face. A vertex, a curved surface, and a flat face. It has only one flat face. So look at the object that we have. Whether does it look like a cone? Cones look like that. Are they the same? The answer is no, they are not the same. So therefore, the object that we have is not a cone. We look at the second option. The second option says a cube. In our previous lesson, we've talked about a cube. We've talked about cubes rather. And then we said cubes are solid shapes that have 6 equal faces. They have 12 edges and 8 vertices. So when we are going to draw a cube, let's draw a cube here. Remember, all the faces of a cube are equal. That is a cube. So let's compare the cube and the object that we have. Are they the same? The answer to that question is no. The two objects are different. Therefore, the correct option will not be cubes, as the object that we have do not replicate a cube. Then we look at the third option, which is option C. And option C says the object is a cylinder. Now let's see if the object is a cylinder. What do we know about cylinders? What do we know about cylinders? We said cylinders are solid shapes that have 2 flat faces. They have 2 flat faces and 1 curved surface. So what can we say about this? What can we say about this? It has 2 flat faces and 1 curved surface. So looking at the object that we have, does it look like a cylinder? Does it look like a cylinder? This should somehow look like a cylinder. Here we have a face, and here we have another face, and also we have a curved surface. So therefore, if you look at the two objects, they are different. We can conclude that the object that we have is not a cylinder, as the objects are different. Then finally, we look at the last option, and the last option says the object that we have is a sphere. Okay, let's see if it is a sphere. What did we say about spheres? We said they are 3-dimensional shapes or solid shapes that are perfectly round. If you look at the shape that we have, it resembles a marble. The shape resembles a marble, although there is something that looks like a hookah that is on it, but we are not considering that. We are considering the object being perfectly round. So if you look at the object, it is perfectly round, and also it looks like a ball because also it is perfectly round, and we know that spheres are solid shapes that are perfectly round. Therefore, we can conclude that this object is a sphere, and then the correct answer or the correct option to this question is going to be option D. The correct option is going to be option D, and spheres is going to be the correct answer to the question. That brings us to the end of the lesson. I will leave you with a homework. You are going to see exercise 2.3 and 2.4 of the geometry worksheet and solve the questions that are there as your exercise. Until we meet again, I thank you all.